Students getting involved in Formula Student shouldn't see it as a path to Formula One, because there's so many benefits. It's great to be involved in this sort of motor racing environment, but it's not. Its benefit is not only if you end up in Formula One. Its benefit you gain from Formula Student is all of these many aspects of teamwork, the challenge, the fact that in our world the race starts on a Sunday and they can't move it, they can't change when that race starts. And so many things in life, you have to have a deadline, you have to meet it. So Formula Student, you have to prepare a car, you have to design it, you have to make it, and you have to turn up on the day and compete with it. There's no choice. And I think it helps to bring a lot of discipline to the way you work, because there is an end game. There's a date of when you have to have that car. So Formula Student brings many experiences and disciplines which are great, whatever a student goes on to do. We have many engineers here who have come in through Formula Student. Andrew Shovlin, who's our chief engineer, came through Formula Student.
Okay, I became a Formula Student ambassador because I was asked in the first instance, but I wouldn't have agreed to be so had I not been properly impressed by the number of people who've come through our doors who have been members of Formula Student teams. It was something that didn't happen when I was at university, and I wish it had done. But I see the people who come here and have been on Formula Student teams, and I can see that those people are head and shoulders above those applicants who haven't. And the reason they're head and shoulders above them is that all of the challenges of Formula Student are the same as the ones that we face in Formula One. And so they get a head start in all the things that are necessary to be a decent Formula One engineer. And I would also go further to say that they're probably similar to the challenges faced in engineering in general.
For a lot of our young people, it's the first time they've had a real tangible, something they've really had to create. They've had an academic training, and suddenly they're now faced with this real world challenge, this piece of metal they have to create and go off and compete with. And that's a bridge you cross at some point in your career, of going from theory to practice. And this is a great way of putting into practice all the theory that our young students, our young engineers are learning at school and at college. So it's a wonderful initiative in that respect, and it gives them some really intense and fantastic challenges which really raises their levels of commitment. And I've been around some of the universities as well, visiting the teams, and the professors and lecturers that are involved tell me they've never seen so much enthusiasm and so much energy that comes from their students when they're involved with these projects. And they suddenly start to burn the midnight oil, not at the bar, but in the workshop. And it really gets a huge amount of enthusiasm. And I think discovering that enthusiasm, discovering that energy, discovering that excitement helps you recognize where you want to be in your career. You want a career where you can experience that level of excitement, that motivation that they've learnt from Formula Student. So it's a fantastic catalyst.
Well, I always like, each year I go to Silverstone when they have the big meeting there and all the teams are there, and I find it thrilling walking around because there's such an array of projects on offer, and at the very high end there's some breathtaking pieces of engineering that have been done by student groups who've had the benefit of being in a Formula Student environment that is clearly very mature, that's benefited, as we do in Formula One, from incremental improvement year on year. And they're inheriting the efforts of generations of Formula Students, people behind them. But I also like to see the teams that are in their first year, who maybe haven't even got the car complete, but they've brought the car to the circuit and they're working on it furiously, trying to get the thing finished in time for the event. And you know that they've been working on exactly the same mountain, but on the lower slopes of it, with all the same passion, requiring all the same skill. And if you talk to them, they're just as caught up in it.
There's two really innovative forms of motorsport left at the moment, and one of them is Formula One and the other one is Formula Student. because almost all other forms of motorsport have become really restricted by the regulations. They've been really put into tight boxes on what they can do. And the great thing about Formula Student is the regulations are there, but they reward innovation. They're quite broad. And I think Formula Student is one of the most exciting forms of motorsport there are in terms of innovation for people to come up with ideas. When you look at all of those cars, they're all different. They've all found different solutions to the challenge of competing in Formula Student. And there's not one car that looks the same as the other. And I think that's fascinating. I think it's a great aspect of the success of Formula Student.
I don't think I've counted up exactly how many recent Formula Student graduates we have working for us right now on our engineering teams, but it's more than a dozen in the building right now. But over the years we've had many, many more than that. And they all arrive with us still buzzing from their experience of Formula Student. Normally they want to find out whether the ideas they had and the approaches they took in their Formula Student car days can be translated immediately onto our car. Very often, in fact normally, we have to tell them, look, we're sorry, but your rule book's an awful lot more open than ours is. We have a very constrained set of regulations. So more often than not, we have to disappoint them in that regard, but the enthusiasm they bring and the experience they have of working in a close-knit team, that translates much more directly and is in fact a much more rich asset than any particular technical detail.